30 minutes before my heart surgery, I was sitting in a freezing hospital hallway that smelled like antiseptic and bad coffee. The fluorescent lights above buzzed quietly, and every beep from a nearby machine made my chest tighten. At 72 years old, I never imagined I'd be here, waiting for doctors to cut open my chest and fix the heart that had carried me through a lifetime of love, loss, and hard work. My name is Katherine Sterling, and I've never been the type of woman who gives up easily. 10 years ago, when my husband, Robert, passed away, everyone assumed I'd fall apart. Instead, I rolled up my sleeves and built something from the ground up. I invested smart, bought property when the market dipped, and slowly turned a handful of rentals into a real estate portfolio worth over $2 million. Downtown apartments, a few plots of land outside the city, and the home I'd lived in for decades. But I didn't build it for myself. I built it for my daughter Jessica and for my grandkids. That morning, Jessica showed up early at the hospital, just like she had for every doctor's appointment during the past few months. I saw her walking down the hallway in a sharp red dress, heels clicking confidently against the floor. "Mom," she said softly, squeezing my hand, "everything's going to be fine." Her voice was warm and reassuring, the same way it used to sound when she was little and tried to comfort me after her father died. A few minutes later, my son-in-law, Michael, arrived. Perfect suit, perfect hair, perfect smile. For 5 years, I'd believed he was the son I never had. "Katherine," he said calmly, "Dr. Evans is the best heart surgeon in the city. You'll be back on your feet before you know it." Between the two of them, they handled everything. Jessica organized the appointments. Michael talked to the insurance company. They made sure I had the best room in the hospital. Honestly, I felt lucky. As I lay there, waiting, sunlight streamed through the window beside my bed. Someone, probably Michael, had placed a bouquet of white lilies on the table. Their scent reminded me of the flowers that grew in my backyard garden. For a moment, I drifted through old memories. My wedding day, Jessica's first steps, her graduation, the day she introduced me to Michael and said she'd found the man she wanted to marry. It all felt like a perfect life. But perfect lives can crack in a single second. I had my eyes closed, pretending to rest, when I heard voices in the hallway outside my door. At first, they were distant, but then they got closer. Jessica and Michael. Their tone was different now, low, tense, almost excited. Michael spoke first. "Jessica, in 3 hours this will all be done. You've got the documents ready, right?" My heart skipped a beat. "Documents?" Jessica answered quietly. "Of course, the fake will is perfect. If she doesn't wake up from anesthesia or ends up brain damaged, we can move everything immediately." My blood turned ice cold. Michael chuckled under his breath. "Heh, with the downtown apartments and the land, we're talking almost $2 million. By tomorrow, we'll finally be rich." I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My own daughter, planning my death like it was a business deal. And then Michael said something that made my entire world collapse. "Don't worry about the surgery. I already paid the night nurse $5,000, 1 extra dose of morphine during recovery, and nobody will ever know." At that moment, I realized something horrifying. The operation waiting for me down the hall wasn't just surgery. It was supposed to be my execution. And the worst part? I hadn't even heard the most terrifying part of their plan yet. For a moment, I thought I might pass out. My heart was already weak, but what I had just heard outside that door felt like a hammer smashing straight through my chest. My own daughter and her husband had calmly discussed my death like it was some kind of business investment. $2 million. That's what my life was worth to them. I forced myself to stay perfectly still on the hospital bed. My eyes stayed shut, my breathing slow, like I was asleep. Inside, though, my mind was racing. "Think, Katherine, think!" Jessica spoke again outside the door, her voice lower now. "What if something goes wrong with the plan?" Michael chuckled. "Relax. The doctor already said complications are likely at her age. Even if the surgery goes perfectly, Mark will handle it during recovery. One small mistake with the morphine pump, and it'll look completely natural." Natural. Like my death would just be another sad hospital story. I felt tears forming in the corners of my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Crying wouldn't save me. Surviving would. Their voices moved farther down the hallway, fading as they walked away. A few seconds later, the corridor went silent again. I opened my eyes slowly and stared at the ceiling. The same white tiles, the same buzzing lights. But suddenly the entire hospital felt like a trap. I had two choices: lie there and let them kill me, or get the hell out. A few minutes later, the door opened and a nurse stepped in. Not Mark. This was Brenda, a middle-aged nurse with kind eyes who had been checking on me all morning. "Mrs. Sterling," she said gently, adjusting the blanket, "we'll be taking you to the operating room in about 15 minutes. 15 minutes. That's how long I had left to live if I did nothing. My throat felt dry. "Brenda," I whispered. She leaned closer. "Yes, honey? I need to make a phone call before the surgery." She frowned slightly. "Right now?" "It's important. Legal stuff. My lawyer needs to confirm something about my will." Technically, it wasn't a lie. Brenda hesitated, glancing at the clock on the wall. "We're really on a tight schedule." "Please," I said, grabbing her hand weakly. "Just 2 minutes." Something in my voice must have convinced her. "All right," she said finally, "but quick." She wheeled me into a small office near the hallway and handed me the phone. My hands trembled as I dialed a number I had memorized years ago. Arthur Vance, my lawyer, the man who had managed every legal detail of my business empire since my husband died. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times, then finally. "Vance Law Office?" "Arthur," I whispered urgently, "it's Katherine Sterling. I need your help right now." His tone changed instantly. "Katherine? What's wrong?" I swallowed hard. "My daughter and her husband are planning to kill me today during surgery." There was silence on the line. Then Arthur spoke again, calm but serious. "Start from the beginning." I quickly told him everything. The conversation I overheard, the fake will, the bribe to the nurse. When he finished, Arthur didn't hesitate. "Katherine, listen to me very carefully," he said. "Do not go into that operating room." My heart pounded. "What do I do?" "You stall. Say you're nervous. Say you want to postpone the surgery. I'm sending my assistant to the hospital right now." "How long?" 30 minutes. 30 minutes. It felt like a lifetime, and no time at all. "Arthur," I whispered. "Yes?" "If they realize I know, they'll kill me before you get here." "I know," he said quietly. "That's why you need to act normal." I heard footsteps coming down the hallway. Someone was approaching the room. "Katherine," Arthur said quickly, "whatever happens next, stay alive. The doorknob started to turn, and the voice on the other side made my blood run cold. "Mrs. Sterling?" It was Mark, the nurse who had been paid to kill me, and he was walking into the room. The door opened slowly, and there he was, Mark, the same nurse who had smiled politely at me earlier that morning while checking my IV line. The same man Michael had just paid $5,000 to end my life. I forced myself not to react. My face stayed calm, my breathing steady. My hand slowly lowered the phone receiver back into place. "Everything okay in here?" Mark asked casually as he stepped inside. He looked normal. Average height, brown hair, tired eyes like someone who worked too many night shifts. If I hadn't overheard that conversation, I would have trusted him completely. "Just finishing a call with my lawyer," I said, trying to sound like a nervous old woman instead of someone who had just escaped a murder plot. He nodded. "That's understandable before surgery. People like to get their affairs in order." The way he said it made my stomach twist. Affairs in order. Yeah, because in his mind, I wouldn't be alive much longer. He walked over to the medical chart on the desk and pretended to review it. "Dr. Evans is ready. We'll be taking you to the operating room soon." My heart pounded, but I kept my voice shaky and uncertain. "Actually, I'm not sure I want to do the surgery today." Mark looked up. For a split second, something flashed across his face. Not concern, not confusion, annoyance. "Excuse me?" he asked. "I'm feeling nervous. I think I want to postpone it until tomorrow." There was a pause in the room, a long one. Mark slowly closed the chart and stepped closer. "You've already signed the consent forms, Mrs. Sterling," he said calmly. "Everything is prepared." "I know," I replied, swallowing, "but this is major heart surgery. I just need one more day." His eyes studied my face carefully, like he was trying to read something behind my expression. Did he suspect I knew? For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he suddenly smiled again. "Of course," he said lightly. "Patients get nervous all the time." Relief rushed through me, but I didn't let it show. "I'll inform Dr. Evans you'd like to reschedule, but you should know that delaying surgery could be risky." "Tomorrow," I repeated. He nodded slowly. "Tomorrow." He turned and walked toward the door. Just before leaving, he glanced back at me, and for the first time, the friendly mask dropped. His voice was quiet, cold. "Try to get some rest, Mrs. Sterling." Then he left. The door clicked shut behind him. The moment he was gone, I let out the breath I'd been holding. My hands were shaking so badly I had to grip the edge of the desk. I had just looked directly into the eyes of the man hired to kill me, and somehow I had convinced him to wait. A few minutes later, Brenda returned. "Good news," she said. "Dr. Evans agreed to postpone the surgery until tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" I nodded gratefully. "Thank you." But inside, my mind was racing. 30 minutes. Arthur's assistant was supposed to arrive in 30 minutes. All I had to do was survive until then. But as Brenda wheeled me back toward my hospital room, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. At the end of the hallway, Jessica and Michael were standing there, and judging by the furious look on Michael's face, they already knew the surgery had been canceled. Jessica walked quickly toward me. "Mom, why did you postpone the operation?" Michael stood behind her, silent, watching me, studying every movement, waiting. And suddenly I realized something terrifying. If they believed their plan was falling apart, they might decide not to wait for the operating room at all. Jessica's heels clicked sharply against the hospital floor as she hurried toward my bed. "Mom," she said, forcing a tight smile. "Why did you cancel the surgery?" Her voice sounded calm, but her eyes were anything but. Behind her, Michael stood with his arms crossed, watching me carefully. His face looked stiff, like someone trying way too hard to stay composed. For a split second, I wondered if they somehow knew, if Mark had told them something, if they realized I overheard everything. I forced out a nervous laugh. "Oh, sweetheart, I just got scared, that's all. Big surgeries can do that to you." Jessica stared at me. "Too long." "You've been preparing for this operation for months," she said slowly. "I know, but right before they wheeled me in, I just felt like I needed one more day." Michael finally stepped forward. "You shouldn't delay something like this," he said smoothly. "The doctor said it was important." His voice sounded friendly, but there was pressure underneath it, like he was trying to push me toward something, toward that operating room, toward the trap. "I already spoke with Dr. Evans," I said quietly. "He agreed to reschedule for tomorrow." Jessica and Michael exchanged a look, a quick one, but I caught it. Something had changed. Their plan depended on today, and now today wasn't happening. "Well," said Jessica after a moment, forcing a smile again, "maybe it's better this way. You can relax tonight and go in tomorrow feeling stronger." "Exactly," Michael added quickly. But I noticed something strange. Neither of them looked relieved. They looked nervous. Michael suddenly checked his watch. "You must be exhausted," he said. "Why don't you get some rest? Jessica and I will grab lunch and come back later." My heart skipped. Lunch? That meant leaving me alone, and if Mark was still involved, that could be dangerous. "You don't have to go," I said quickly. "I'd rather have company." Jessica shook her head. "You need quiet, Mom. Hospitals are stressful enough." Michael gently patted my arm. "We'll be gone a couple hours." A couple hours? That was perfect for Arthur's plan. Still, I forced myself to hesitate slightly before nodding. "Okay," I said softly. Jessica leaned down and kissed my forehead. "Try to sleep." Michael smiled politely. "See you soon, Katherine." Then they walked out of the room. The second the door closed, the warm smiles disappeared from their faces. I saw it through the small glass window. Michael grabbed Jessica's arm and pulled her toward the hallway corner. They began arguing in low voices. Jessica looked angry. Michael looked furious. I couldn't hear the words, but I didn't need to. Their perfect plan was slipping away, and they knew it. 20 minutes later, I heard a soft knock at my door. My heart jumped. For a terrifying second, I thought it might be Mark again. But when the door opened, a young woman stepped inside. She was about 25, wearing a gray business suit and carrying a small suitcase. "Mrs. Serling?" she asked quietly. "Yes?" She closed the door behind her and walked closer. "My name is Sarah," she said. "I work for Arthur Vance." Relief hit me so hard my eyes filled with tears. "You made it," I whispered. She nodded quickly. "We don't have much time." She placed the suitcase on the bed and opened it. Inside were jeans, a blouse, sneakers, and a jacket. "Arthur sent clothes," she said. "You need to change right now." My hands trembled. "You're getting me out of here?" Sarah looked toward the door and lowered her voice. "Yes." She handed me the clothes. "Because your daughter and son-in-law are already back in the hospital." My stomach dropped. "What?" Sarah's eyes were serious. "They're downstairs talking to hospital staff, and from the way they're acting," she paused, "I think they're starting to realize you know something." For a second, I just stared at Sarah. "They're already back," I whispered. She nodded quickly while pulling clothes from the suitcase. "Arthur thinks they got suspicious when the surgery was postponed. They didn't go to lunch like they said. They stayed nearby." A cold chill ran down my spine. So they were still here, in the same building, possibly just a few floors away. "We need to move fast," Sarah said. "They could come up here any minute." She handed me the jeans and blouse. "Get dressed." My hands shook as I slipped out of the hospital gown. The thin fabric had made me feel helpless all morning, like a fragile patient waiting to be cut open. But pulling on normal clothes again felt different. It felt like getting my life back. Sarah helped me steady myself as I put on the sneakers. "You doing okay?" she asked. "I'm 72, not dead yet," I muttered. She smiled slightly. "Arthur said you'd say something like that." Once I was dressed, she closed the suitcase and handed me a small envelope. Inside were my driver's license, some cash, and a credit card. "Arthur arranged everything," she explained. "There's a car waiting in the parking garage." I nodded slowly. "Good." But before we could leave, voices suddenly echoed in the hallway outside my room. "Jessica." I froze. "She's supposed to be in this room," she said sharply. Michael answered in a lower voice. "Relax, we'll check." My heart started pounding so hard I thought it might burst. They were right outside. Sarah grabbed my arm. "Bathroom," she whispered. We slipped quietly into the small hospital bathroom and closed the door halfway. Through the narrow crack, I could see the hospital room. Seconds later, the main door opened. Jessica walked in first. Michael followed. They both looked around the room. The empty bed, the folded hospital blanket. Jessica frowned. "Where is she?" Michael's eyes narrowed. "She was here 20 minutes ago." He walked over to the bed and picked up the hospital gown lying on the mattress. Then he noticed something. The suitcase was gone. His face darkened instantly. "She didn't just leave," he said slowly. Jessica's voice trembled. "What do you mean?" Michael turned toward the door. "She ran." Jessica's panic exploded. "That's impossible. She's weak. She can barely walk." Michael shook his head. "Someone helped her." A heavy silence filled the room. Then Jessica whispered something that made my blood run cold. "Do you think she heard us?" Michael didn't answer right away. He just stood there thinking. Then finally he said the words I feared most. "If she did." He looked toward the hallway. "We're in serious trouble." Jessica's breathing quickened. "What do we do?" Michael's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "We find her before she talks to anyone." My stomach twisted. He continued, "Because if she goes to the police," his jaw tightened, "our lives are over." Jessica suddenly turned toward the bathroom door. For one terrifying moment, I thought she had heard us. But then Michael grabbed her arm. "Forget this room," he said quickly. "Check the exits." They rushed out of the room. The door slammed shut. For several seconds, Sarah and I stood frozen, listening. The hallway went quiet again. Sarah exhaled slowly. "That was way too close." My knees felt weak. "They're hunting me now." She nodded. "Yes." Then she grabbed the suitcase and looked at me seriously. "Which means we need to get you out of this hospital right now." We stepped out of the bathroom. The hallway outside was empty, for the moment. Sarah lowered her voice. "There's a service elevator at the end of the corridor." We started walking quickly. Every step felt like it echoed too loudly on the floor. My heart pounded harder with each second. Halfway down the hallway, I heard footsteps behind us, fast ones. Sarah turned slightly and whispered something that made my stomach drop. "Don't look back." "Why?" I asked quietly. Her voice became tense. "Because I think," she paused, "Michael just saw us." "Don't look back," Sarah whispered. Of course, the first thing I wanted to do was turn around, but I forced myself to keep walking. My heart was hammering so hard it felt like it might give out before my enemies ever had the chance to kill me. "Keep moving," Sarah said quietly. We walked faster toward the end of the hallway where the service elevator was located. Behind us, footsteps echoed on the hospital floor. Closer, faster. Then I heard Michael's voice. "Katherine!" My stomach dropped. He had seen us. "Don't stop," Sarah said sharply. We reached the elevator and she slammed the button. The light above it stayed red, still on another floor. Come on," Sarah muttered. Behind us, the footsteps grew louder. Jessica's voice joined Michael's. "Mom, wait!" The fake concern in her voice almost made me laugh. Almost. Sarah pressed the elevator button again. Still nothing. Then Michael shouted, "She's escaping! Stop them!" 2 hospital staff members looked up from the nurses' station nearby, confused by the yelling. But before they could react, the elevator dinged. The doors slid open. "Inside," Sarah said. We rushed in and she hit the button for the parking garage level. Just as the doors began closing, Michael reached the elevator. His hand slammed against the metal door. For a split second, I thought he might stop it, but the doors shut and the elevator started moving. I leaned back against the wall, shaking. "Oh my God," I whispered. Sarah exhaled slowly. That was too close. Through the small digital display above the door, I watched the numbers change. 3, 2, 1. Every second felt like an hour. "What if they take the stairs?" I asked nervously. Sarah shook her head. "The garage entrance is on the other side of the building. Even if they run, we'll get there first." The elevator finally stopped. The doors opened to the dim concrete parking garage. Cold air hit my face. Sarah grabbed the suitcase. "This way." We moved quickly between rows of parked cars. The sound of our footsteps echoed loudly in the empty garage. "Arthur rented a silver sedan, row C," she said. We turned the corner, and there it was, a silver car waiting near the exit ramp. Relief flooded through me. "We made it," I breathed. "Not yet," Sarah said. She unlocked the doors and opened the passenger side for me. "Get in." I slid into the seat while she tossed the suitcase in the back. Just as she got behind the wheel, a loud voice echoed across the garage. "Stop!" I turned toward the sound. Michael was running down the ramp from the stairwell. Jessica was right behind him. Michael sprinted toward the car. His face was twisted with rage. "Go!" I shouted. Sarah slammed the car into gear. The tires screeched against the concrete as we shot toward the exit. Michael was only a few feet away now. He reached out and grabbed the passenger door handle, but the car jerked forward and his grip slipped. He stumbled backward. Jessica screamed something I couldn't understand. Then we sped up the ramp and burst out of the parking garage into the bright afternoon sunlight. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. The hospital grew smaller in the rearview mirror. My chest rose and fell rapidly. "Did we lose them?" I asked nervously. Sarah shook her head. "Yes." Relief washed over me. I was finally free. But Sarah's expression suddenly changed. Her eyes focused on the rearview mirror again. "What?" I asked nervously. She swallowed. "Problem." "What problem?" My stomach tightened. Sarah pointed behind us. I turned around and felt my blood run cold. A black SUV had just pulled out of the hospital driveway, and it was accelerating, fast. Sarah gripped the steering wheel. "I think," she paused, "they're chasing us." The black SUV behind us was getting closer. Fast. Sarah tightened her grip on the steering wheel as she checked the rearview mirror again. "Yep," she muttered. "That's definitely them." My heart pounded in my chest. "You're sure?" "Pretty sure," she replied. "And they're driving like people with something to lose." The SUV swerved through traffic, ignoring a red light as it tore down the street behind us. Michael was driving. Even from this distance, I could recognize his aggressive style behind her wheel. Jessica sat in the passenger seat. I could see her leaning forward, pointing at our car. "Speed up," I said nervously. "I'm trying," Sarah replied, pressing the gas pedal harder. The engine roared as our car surged forward, but the SUV stayed right behind us. "Arthur said desperate people make stupid decisions," Sarah said. "Looks like he was right." Cars filled the afternoon traffic, making it harder to move quickly. The city suddenly felt like a maze. "Where are we going?" I asked. "To a safe location Arthur arranged," Sarah said, "but we need to lose them first." Behind us, the SUV suddenly changed lanes and pulled closer, too close. Michael was trying to cut us off. "Hold on," Sarah warned. She turned sharply onto a side street. The car jolted as we raced down the narrower road. For a moment, I thought we had lost them. Then the SUV appeared behind us again. Michael wasn't giving up. "Does he realize he's basically confessing everything by chasing us like this?" I asked. Sarah snorted. "People planning murder usually don't make great long-term decisions." The SUV honked loudly. Michael swerved dangerously close to our bumper. My stomach twisted. "He's trying to run us off the road!" "I know," Sarah said, her voice tense but focused. She suddenly turned again, this time into a crowded commercial district filled with shops and pedestrians. Traffic slowed dramatically. Cars crawled through the intersection. The SUV had to slow down too. "That bought us a little time," Sarah said. But Michael was relentless. The SUV forced its way between two cars and pushed closer again. Jessica rolled down the passenger window and shouted something. I couldn't hear the words, but I didn't need to. Her face was twisted with anger. My own daughter, chasing me through the streets like I was the criminal. Sarah glanced at me quickly. "Katherine, I need you to stay calm." "I'm calm," I said, gripping the seat tightly. "That's a lie." She was right. I was terrified, but I refused to show it. The road ahead split into two directions. Sarah made a sudden decision. She slammed the wheel left. The car sped onto a wide boulevard lined with office buildings. Behind us, the SUV tried to follow, but a delivery truck pulled into the intersection, blocking the lane. Michael slammed his brakes. The SUV stopped behind the truck. For a few seconds, he couldn't move. Sarah accelerated immediately. We gained distance quickly. The SUV finally broke free from the traffic jam, but now it was several blocks behind. Sarah checked the mirror. A slow smile appeared on her face. "I think," she paused, "we just lost them." I exhaled for what felt like the first time in hours. Oh, thank God! But Sarah didn't look fully relaxed yet. "We still need to reach the safe location before they track us again." "Where is it?" She glanced at me. "Arthur is already there, waiting." Relief spread through me again. But as we drove through the city streets, something still bothered me. "Sarah," I said slowly. "Yeah?" "If Michael was desperate enough to chase us through traffic," I looked back at the empty road behind us, "what do you think he's planning next?" Sarah didn't answer right away. Then she said something that made my stomach tighten again. "If I know people like him," she paused, "he's not done trying to destroy you yet." And unfortunately for Michael, neither was I. 20 minutes later, Sarah finally slowed the car as we turned into a quiet street lined with tall trees and elegant townhouses. "This is it," she said. I looked around cautiously. The neighborhood looked peaceful, almost too peaceful after everything that had just happened. Neatly trimmed hedges, brick sidewalks, and expensive cars parked neatly along the curb. Nothing about it suggested danger, but right now, safety felt like the most valuable thing in the world. Sarah pulled into the underground garage of one of the buildings and parked. "We're here," she said. I stepped out of the car slowly, my legs still shaking from the adrenaline of the chase. Where exactly are we? A secure property Arthur uses for clients who need privacy, she explained. We entered the building through a private elevator that required a key card. When the elevator doors opened on the top floor, I immediately saw Arthur waiting in the hallway. For the first time that day, I felt genuine relief. "Katherine," he said, walking toward me quickly. "Thank God you're safe." He shook his head as he looked at Sarah. "I saw the traffic reports. Michael chased you?" "Yes," Sarah replied calmly, "but we lost him." Arthur sighed. That man just made his situation even worse. We entered the apartment together. It was spacious and modern, with large windows overlooking the city skyline. The entire place felt secure, like a fortress hidden in plain sight. Arthur closed the door behind us. "Sit down," he said. "We need to talk." I sank into a chair at the dining table. For a moment, the room was silent. Then Arthur opened a thick folder and placed it in front of me. "This," he said, "is the beginning of their downfall." I looked down at the documents. "What is it?" "Evidence," he began explaining. "After your call this morning, I immediately contacted the district attorney. Because of the seriousness of the situation, they opened an emergency investigation." Sarah leaned against the counter, and things moved fast. Arthur nodded. "Very fast." He flipped open the folder. "First, we have Mark's confession." My eyes widened. "The nurse?" "Yes," Arthur confirmed. "Police questioned him after your press conference went viral. Within 2 hours, he admitted everything." A wave of cold anger ran through me. "So he told them Michael paid him?" $5,000, exactly like you overheard." I clenched my hands. "That alone is attempted murder." "Correct," Arthur replied, "but it gets worse." He turned another page. "We also uncovered financial fraud." "What kind?" "For the past 3 years, Jessica and Michael have been quietly transferring money from accounts connected to your properties." I stared at him in shock. "How much?" Arthur looked directly at me. "Approximately $300,000. My chest tightened. "300,000? Sarah shook her head. "They thought you'd never notice." Arthur continued. "They disguised the transfers as maintenance costs, repairs, and property management expenses." I felt sick. All those times Michael had offered to help manage paperwork, he had been stealing from me. Arthur closed the folder slowly. "Katherine, between the murder conspiracy and financial fraud, they're facing very serious charges." For a moment, I said nothing. I simply stared out the window at the city lights beginning to glow as evening approached. My own daughter had tried to kill me, and now the truth was unraveling faster than any of us expected. Finally, I spoke. "What happens next?" Arthur leaned forward. "Tomorrow morning, the police will issue arrest warrants." A strange calm washed over me. Jessica and Michael had spent months planning my death, but now the law was coming for them. Sarah crossed her arms. "They're going to panic when they realize what's happening." Arthur nodded. "And desperate people make dangerous choices." I frowned. "What do you mean?" Arthur hesitated. "Michael has already shown he's willing to chase you through traffic in broad daylight." My stomach tightened again. "So what's stopping him from doing something worse?" Arthur's expression grew serious. "That's exactly what we need to prepare for." At that moment, Sarah's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. Then her face suddenly went pale. "What is it?" Arthur asked. She looked up slowly. "You're not going to like this." My heart started racing again. "Tell me." Sarah swallowed. "Michael just posted a video online." "What kind of video?" She turned the phone toward us. "He's telling everyone." He dropped her voice. that you're the one trying to kill him." Sarah placed the phone on the table. Michael's face filled the screen. He looked stressed, unshaven, and angry, but he was trying hard to sound convincing. "My name is Michael Grant," he said in the video. "My wife and I are being falsely accused by my mother-in-law, Katherine Sterling. She is mentally unstable and being manipulated by people who want her money." I felt a wave of disbelief wash over me. "He's trying to make me look insane," I said quietly. Arthur nodded. "Classic strategy. If he convinces the public you're not mentally sound, it weakens your accusations." Michael continued speaking in the video. "She disappeared from the hospital without telling anyone, and now her lawyer is controlling everything. My wife and I are worried about her safety." Sarah scoffed. "Wow, that's bold." Arthur remained calm. "He's desperate, but he just made a huge mistake." "What mistake?" I asked. Arthur turned his laptop toward me. "Because the police already moved." He refreshed a news website. A breaking headline appeared across the screen. "Local man arrested in connection with hospital murder plot." My heart skipped. "They got him?" Arthur nodded. 30 minutes ago." The article explained everything. After Mark's confession and the financial records, police had issued arrest warrants for Michael and Jessica. Officers located them at their home shortly after Michael posted the video. Both were now in custody. Jessica had reportedly broken down during questioning. Michael had refused to speak. I leaned back in my chair slowly. It was over. Months of planning, years of manipulation, and the entire scheme collapsed in less than 2 days. Sarah smiled. "Karma works fast sometimes." But my thoughts drifted somewhere else. "My grandchildren," I said quietly. Arthur nodded with understanding. "I've already started the legal process for a trust fund in their names. Their parents won't be able to touch a single dollar." Relief filled my chest. They deserve a future that isn't poisoned by their parents' mistakes. Arthur closed the folder of evidence. "The case will move forward quickly now. With Mark's confession and the financial records, it's extremely strong." I stood up and walked to the window. The city lights shimmered below like tiny stars. Just yesterday, I had been lying in a hospital bed, waiting to die. Today, I was alive, free, and stronger than I'd ever been. For the first time in a long time, my heart felt light, not because the danger had passed, but because the truth had won. I turned back toward Arthur and Sarah. "Thank you," I said softly. Arthur smiled. "You saved yourself, Katherine. We just helped." And as I looked out across the city one last time, I realized something important. Sometimes the people you trust the most can betray you, but courage, truth, and a little bit of smart planning can change everything. Because in the end, justice always finds its way. And this time, it found me.